Have you ever done the right thing and still felt guilty afterward? Not unsure, not confused. Guilty, as if you hurt someone even though you know you didn't. This feeling confuses people deeply because guilt is supposed to come from doing harm, from making mistakes. But the brain doesn't create guilt based on logic. It creates guilt based on safety, belonging, and emotional conditioning. And once you understand that, the feeling starts to make sense. Guilt often appears when you choose yourself, when you say no, when you leave, when you stop explaining, when you stop tolerating something that was quietly draining you. The brain interprets change as a potential threat, especially when that change disrupts familiar patterns. Even unhealthy patterns feel safe to the nervous system because they are predictable. Predictability feels like control. When you make the right decision, you break that predictability, and the brain reacts with discomfort. From an early age, many people learn that being accepted requires self-sacrifice. Approval becomes linked to compliance. You learn, sometimes silently, that being easy keeps peace, that being flexible keeps love. Over time, the brain associates harmony with survival. So when you make a decision that prioritizes your needs, your brain flags it as a risk. Not because it's wrong, but because it might lead to rejection, conflict, or loss of connection. That internal alarm often shows up as guilt. The brain is wired to protect social bonds. Historically, being excluded from the group meant danger. Survival depended on connection. Even today, your nervous system still carries that ancient wiring. When you choose differently from what the group expects, the brain doesn't analyze context. It simply sends a warning signal. That signal feels emotional, not rational. And many people interpret that signal as guilt, even when the decision itself was healthy. Think about the last time you set a boundary and felt uneasy afterward. Or the last time you walked away from something draining and replayed the moment in your head again and again. That replay isn't your conscience telling you that you were wrong. It's your nervous system trying to restore familiarity. Familiarity feels safe, even when it hurts. The brain would rather return to known pain than stay in unfamiliar peace. Guilt is not always about harm. It's often about conditioning. Many people were taught, directly or indirectly, that love must be earned through tolerance. That saying yes keeps peace. That staying quiet avoids conflict. That being understanding means ignoring your limits. Over time, the brain learns that discomfort in others equals danger for you. So when you choose differently, your body reacts before logic has time to respond. This is why guilt often feels physical. A tight chest, a heavy stomach, restlessness, shallow breathing. The body reacts because it believes a bond is at risk. The brain is not asking, "Was this right?" It is asking, "Will I be safe after this?" That question lives in the nervous system, not in conscious thought. Another reason guilt appears is because the brain confuses responsibility with control. When you make a healthy decision, you stop managing how others feel. That loss of control can feel unsettling, especially if you've spent years regulating other people's emotions. If you were the one who smoothed things over, explained, adjusted, and absorbed tension, stepping back can feel like neglect. The brain translates that discomfort into guilt, even though nothing harmful happened. Notice how guilt shows up strongest in people who are empathetic, dependable, and emotionally aware. These are not selfish people. These are people whose nervous systems are tuned outward. They feel shifts in energy. They sense disappointment quickly. When they choose themselves, it feels unfamiliar. And unfamiliarity often triggers self-doubt before confidence can form. The brain also hates unanswered emotional questions. When you make the right decision, especially one involving other people, you don't get instant closure. You don't know how they'll react long-term. You don't know how they'll talk about you. You don't know if you'll be misunderstood. That open loop creates tension. Guilt often fills the space where certainty is missing. Over time, many people mistake guilt for intuition. They think if this feels bad, it must be wrong. But intuition is calm. Guilt is noisy. Intuition brings clarity. Guilt creates urgency. Guilt pushes you to explain, to apologize, to soften, to undo decisions that were necessary for your well-being. This is why people over-explain after setting boundaries. Not because the boundary was wrong, but because silence feels unsafe. The nervous system wants reassurance that connection still exists. The brain would rather create guilt than sit with uncertainty. Guilt also appears because growth creates imbalance. When you grow, the systems around you must adjust. Relationships shift, expectations change. That adjustment period feels unstable. The brain prefers harmony over honesty, even if harmony comes at the cost of self-respect. So when you disrupt balance by choosing what's right for you, guilt acts like pressure, pushing you back toward the old dynamic. Here's the truth most people never hear. Guilt after the right decision is often a sign that you stopped abandoning yourself, and a brain that is used to self-abandonment reacts with discomfort. Not because the decision was wrong, but because it was unfamiliar. If you don't immediately give in to the guilt, something interesting begins to happen. The nervous system starts to recalibrate. What once felt wrong begins to feel neutral, then normal. The guilt weakens, the clarity strengthens. The brain slowly learns that safety does not always come from pleasing others. Understanding this changes the question you ask. Instead of asking, "What did I do wrong?" you ask, "What pattern did I break?" That shift changes everything. One question leads to self-blame, the other leads to awareness. Guilt is not a command, it is a signal that you stepped outside conditioning, that you chose long-term peace over short-term comfort, that you stopped confusing responsibility with self-erasure. If you've ever felt guilty after doing the right thing, it doesn't mean you lack integrity. It means your nervous system is learning a new definition of safety. And learning always feels uncomfortable before it feels natural. The next time guilt shows up after a healthy decision, don't rush to undo it. Don't rush to explain, sit with it. Observe it. Let your brain experience the fact that nothing terrible happens when you choose yourself. Over time, that lesson settles in quietly. What once felt selfish begins to feel necessary. What once felt wrong begins to feel aligned. And the guilt that once controlled your decisions becomes nothing more than a fading echo of who you used to be.